Okay, so I want to welcome you all here to Co-Creating a Beautiful Life. We are on series number 8, and I appreciate all of your guys' continued support. I've aligned myself with a bunch of different beautiful souls outside of you guys in my life, personally and professionally, that I feel have a very beautiful message to share. And hence the reason I started putting these on for everybody, because I know I learn a lot from these mentors in my life that I feel a lot of my loved ones should hear their message and learn along with me so that we can grow and evolve and vibrate up together. So thank you, Dr. Malan, for being here. It's truly our honor.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Yes. So our topic today is obviously love, relationships, and sexuality. So this is a very taboo topic. You know, as I was saying earlier, there's a lot of response on this Co-Creating a Beautiful Life on online, everything else. And then we get here today and it's actually one of the smaller groups. To me, that is so eye-opening as to how vulnerable we have to be in this room right now. And to get real and raw about this subject, because it's not easy to talk about these things. We're not taught about it in school. We're not taught about it in life. And the subject of going to a sex therapist or I call him my relationship coach, but people say marriage counseling, you know, and marriage counseling is looked at as something negative. And I think there's strength in vulnerability that says, hey, you know, I don't know all the answers, but God damn it, I owe it to my family, to myself, to my loved ones, to go and find those answers. And when I find good ones and good people, I sure as shit am gonna bring them here and let all of you guys learn from them too, because their message is very powerful. Dr. Malan and I started coaching together about 2 months ago, because Josh and I'll be real and raw with you guys, we were not in a good spot. We've had a lot of trauma over the last year that has put us in places where we have different perspectives on things. And that is hard when you have different nature and you have different nurture and you're brought up different and you have different, influences, goals, dreams, hormones, drives, passions, all of that stuff. It's hard sometimes to say, hey, we're good. And I can tell you, I wasn't fucking good. We weren't good. I was ready to say after 13 years, 15 years together, I don't know that I can do this anymore. But when I met this man, he taught us the things that you don't learn from your parents. Especially me, like my parents were married and divorced 3 times each. I've had step families come and go, and they're no longer my family anymore. But I'm trying to hold my shit together so that I can give my kids a better life and inspire others that, hey, life isn't always gonna be easy. But God damn it, if you work at it and you're with the right people and you're aligning yourself and we have the same destination in mind, we can make it. We can make it through the hard times, and it might be fucking hard. But God damn it, we're gonna sit there at the end and we're gonna look back on our life and we're gonna say, I love you, babe. And thanks for sticking with me in my bad times and my good. And so he's helped me a lot on how, and Josh, tons. Josh he's done a 180 in my perspective, right? Of who he has been to who it is he truly wants to be. He's stepped into his power. And I'm watching that, and it's all with the help of these life coaches, relationship coaches. Fuck, I have a coach for everything. And God damn it, so I make a lot of money to give it all back to learn how to cope in life. But you know what? We're changing the world in the process, and it's good. It's necessary. And so I can't thank you guys all enough for being here and believing in this vision and realizing that together we can move mountains and we can change this community together. It means a lot that you guys are here and that you guys are willing to have these conversations, because they're not fucking easy to have. But they need to be had for all of us to grow. So anyways, there's a little introduction of why I feel like it's so important for him to be here and why I invited him here. I felt like, a lot of the times with past speakers, I'm learning, I haven't exactly told my story as to why these people are important. I've just said that they've had a beautiful message, but I want to share with you guys going forward what it is that I'm getting out of it and why I feel that you guys can align yourself with that as well and learn something. Dr. Malan let me just go into this. He's a board-certified clinical sexologist and professor. His clinics and schools are devoted to helping individuals and couples function at their best in all areas related to love, sex, and relationships. He is a clinical doctor, a graduate and school professor of sexology, researcher, and an author. His publications include the Encyclopedia of Sex and Society, the scientific research published in the Journal of Sex Research, and the Journal of Sexuality and Culture. He is the founder and director of the Malan School of Love. That's where me and Josh are. We're students in the School of Love, which obviously fits our vision, you know? If you are going out there to spread love, you also have to have love within your own home to be able to keep giving that love. So that foundation has to be super strong. He's an academic and experimental school for the study and practice of love, offering professional certification. Dr. Malan's private practice is in Ogden. He's actually located right on the corner in the Ben Lomond Hotel. So we walk literally hundreds of feet to our coaching sessions together. It's easy and it's awesome. Like, it's so convenient.
Just walk over.
Walk over and say hi. It's awesome. Yeah. He and his wife, Colette, work as a clinical team in both their Ogden and Salt Lake City clinics. Dr. Mirena and Colette are popular speakers on love, gender, and sexual and relationship health, and have appeared on interviews on Fox News, the ABC Evening News, Utah Matters, The Daily Dish, the City Weekly, and CBS Morning News. I'd like to give a warm welcome to Dr. Mark Malan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hugs. Hugs. Love you. Love you.
Love this hug.
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm trying. I'm in plots today. I love it. Recently. Okay.
So, wow, that was quite an introduction, far beyond the one on paper. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do want to say that when people come to see me, they don't want to come and see me until they're in trouble in their relationship. That's what motivates people for change. And what I want to say is that the change that happens is because of the individuals that come. So we provide the information, we give the direction, but Amanda and Josh are changing their relationship. I'm not changing their relationship. I'm showing them ways that they can do the change that they want to produce the relationship that they want and the family that they want. And I just have a whole bunch of science. So I can throw this at people that come into the clinic. So today I want to have fun with you. I want this to be interactive. I brought a few different things. Before we're done, I think it looks like we have, about an hour left?
We're good.
So feel free as I'm going along to raise your hand, ask questions, interrupt me. Because I really want you to leave this experience today with something that you feel like can really make your life better. So I'm going to feed you a lot of science that's fun. And a little later on, when you maybe feel a little bit more comfortable with me, I'm going to ask for some volunteers because we're going to do a skit. And if you decide to volunteer for the skit, there will be rewards. Okay, so I'm tempting you out there. Before we start, there will be rewards for volunteerism. Okay. The other thing I'll say is, other than the fact that this is being videotaped, there is some control over the dissemination of that information. So if there's any comments that you make or anything, let Amanda or myself know that you maybe want to be cut out of that. Or like our wonderful person who's doing all the video for us today said, he can blur you out. Yeah. So the other thing I will say is I'm comfortable with any language that you want to use. So some people like to say intercourse and some people like to say fuck. And so whatever you like to say is fine because we just want to communicate, and that's what's important today. So without further ado, I want to start with a little bit of information about us. So let me just pull this little door open, and you'll see a picture of a lovely couple here. walking along the beach. This is a real couple. Before I went to graduate school and became a doctor, I actually did media work. And so this is a couple that I photographed a love story about them. They were just getting married. And so we went down to the beach in California and they took this little walk on the beach, and hence we have that photo. A very connected couple. So Coletta's my wife. You can see our credentials up there. This is our website. I'll be giving you a handout that has all of our contact information if you're wanting to do that. So, so that's just a little bit about us. Let's see. Oh, there we go. And so I'm going to read this slide to you. It gives you a little overview of our clinical stuff. And then I'm not going to concentrate as much on this as having fun with you today. So we provide evidence-based evaluation and treatment. That means when you come to us, it's not just my cool idea. It's based on real science. Evidence-based evaluation and treatment of sexual and relationship dysfunction that's safe. And that's the word that we really like to emphasize. When you come to clinic, the most important experience you will have there is emotional safety, because we can't talk about this big stuff unless you feel comfortable, you trust us, you know what we talk about is confidential, and that I'm not going to put it up on the internet unless you don't pay your bill. So safe, relaxed, confidential, non-judgmental. We really pride ourselves in being non-judgmental with our patients, and that respect our patients' values. The science we use is what we call a biopsychosocial approach. So we're looking at you in those three areas very carefully. It utilizes action-oriented therapy and behavioral prescriptions. So that's probably enough. I've got more stuff on PowerPoint, but I'm going to switch over here and I'm going to bring this screen up and do a little chalk talk with you for a minute. So,
Can we erase that?
yeah, would you please?
Yeah.
Now notice how slowly this is going up. Gentlemen, notice how slowly it's going up. So
don't go too fast.
to get started, one of the differences between male and female sexuality a long time ago in China was characterized by the following. Men are like fire and women are like water. And men are like fire because we get excited real quick. We're like a match that lights up, and women get excited slowly. And those of you that are in relationships know this at some level. And men really come up to the peak really quick, and then we're just like a match that blows out. We fall off the cliff and we get sleepy and roll over. And so, again, like the slowness here, know that women, if you really want to connect deeply with them, they need about 20 minutes to get there where you need maybe about 30 seconds. So if you haven't figured that out yet, that's my first little piece of science today. Let's see, I want to map out for you the four major steps of all relationships. So all relationships will go through these things, and this is from developmental psychology. So where we start, and you know this because, you know, unless you've been hiding in a box someplace, we start with, do we have a boulder one?
You know what? This dark blue one. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
That dark blue one right here works
Is
best.
that better?
Yeah.
Let's do that one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try again. So we start with infatuation. And you know that, right?
Right.
And it looks like this. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I met you. You're so awesome. So during infatuation, we're very chemically altered. You're actually drunk on infatuation. And when we measure what happens to people in the early stage of meeting and finding alignment with one another, we realize that they're biochemically altered in some sort of way. And it's nature's little trick that gets played on us to get us to move further into relationship. So when you have two people that come together, these other colored guys work very well, okay? Because we want to be colorful here. So when we have two people, oh, there we go. These are my people. Okay. There's three elements that we bring into a relationship. So these smiley faces are based on when we're dating and we get to know somebody, we're on our best behavior, we groom ourselves, we get together, we have a lot of fun, we go out on dates, and we connect. And we're learning about this other person, and we go, you know, I really like that you're patient, really like that it seems like you'd be a really good parent, you like the same movies that I like. We have all this common ground, and you have some really good developed traits that will really make a relationship great. And so your partner's looking at this about you and going like, you look like potential. And so what we bring in there that's really already developed, you know, all of our good traits, we're going to represent as hearts. So these are all of our good things, right, that we've got. So we all have that. But you know, everybody's a little bit different. We were raised different. We have our differences. And so then we move a little further into the relationship. And we may move in with each other, or we're going to spend a lot more time with each other, or some people just jump the gun and get married. So then you sort of come to the next phase, which we call the disillusionment phase. And it looks similar in this way, because you get to keep all that good stuff, right? But then disillusionment sets in and you go, oh my gosh, I didn't know you had stinky feet, or that you were $60,000 in credit card debt. So I don't know if this is really going to work. So now you're finding out the whole story about your partner. And at this point, we do what's called a cost benefits analysis. So if any of you are like MBAs or do any financial stuff, you know what a cost benefits analysis looks like. So we're making this little mental list of, oh, I really like this stuff about you, but I don't know if this part's going to work. So if we stay and we don't break up, then we decide, well, hey, you know, I think the benefits are really going to outweigh the costs. So we stay. But there's a little voice in the back of our head that says, could you please fix that person over there so that I can have what I want? So our next stage, after you spend some time together, is when this stuff doesn't really get resolved. You know, you've asked nicely, but your partner's not changing and you're kind of stuck. And so now you hit this next stage, which we call the working stage. And the working stage looks, you always get to keep this part because you're awesome, right? But this part's unresolved. And so what's happening is we get some of this. Oh no, I don't know if this is going to work or not. So all relationships will move through this. And what's happening is the part of you that is resisting change or doesn't know how to change or can't change or, you know, all the bad habits that you've got, you're sort of stuck and it's contaminating your relationship in some sort of negative way. So that's when people call me. So I know if you call me, you're going to be somewhere either working on yourself or you're going to be working on your relationship. So my job is to get you through the working stage, to give you the tools, to give you the support, to help you understand how to change yourself and create the relationship that you want. So there's a little wall that exists here between the working stage and what we call the satisfaction stage. And satisfaction, of course, is more satisfying. So that's pretty big or grins. There's always going to be a little bit of this, because nobody's perfect, right? You know, you always got to have something to work on, or else your relationship will get boring. So, so this wall is the wall of ignorance. And in Utah, we call it ignorant, right? Is that, you guys from Utah? You know, it's sort of our colloquial language there. You're ignorant. But I'm talking about ignorance, which is just a lack of knowledge. So how many of you went to high school and had any kind of training about relationships? Other than, you know, just what you do in school. A lot of times that's not the best training. How many of you went to college and took a class, maybe a class on human sexuality or relationships? Anybody? Okay. So you got a little bit of information there. Was it helpful? Did it?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Oh, okay. All right. So maybe not that helpful. Okay. All right.
They actually ended up banning that class.
They banned the class?
This was in '87.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was it? What was the
It
class?
was human sexuality. That's what it was called.
Oh,
Human
yeah.
sexuality.
Up at Weber State?
No, but the U.
At the U. Okay. Because I've lectured in both of those classes. I know the backstory on that. Sometimes faculty gets pressure from the community not to talk about particular things. So unfortunately, that's in an academic setting, there needs to be academic freedom. And in my field, in sexology, most graduates that are coming out of my field are coming from private institutions that have the ability to do research and so forth without any type of interference from the public. So anyway, that's sort of your story and my story. And so I've been in a very long-term relationship. Lucky for me, I'm married to a marriage therapist. And so you should see how much fun we have working through our issues with our communication, and things get frisky in the bedroom. So we have to practice what we preach, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so any questions or comments on this? Is this ringing bells for anybody?
I have a question. So
Yeah, please.
I feel like you can go from satisfaction
Back
to working though, because I mean, like in a relationships, it has highs and lows. So
Yes.
okay.
So yeah, this is, you know, pretty general. So, you know, you'll get a certain amount of satisfaction, but there's other things that you may still need to develop, and so you want to come back here and sort of work on that stuff. It's an ongoing process. So you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So, question, because isn't that, I mean, I'm a visual, you know me by now. So isn't that kind of like, okay, how you're bouncing back and forth? Because the wall of ignorance, does it continue the more you're evolving? Does it get higher as well to overcome some of the lessons that you have to learn to continue to grow in your relationship and keep it from getting boring?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Because I was thinking, like, as you're evolving, right, of course there's always going to be problems. So I would assume that that wall of ignorance just doesn't stay here. It probably keeps going up as you're growing, would be kind of my assumption, which is how you can feel like you're bouncing back and forth. Because I feel the same way.
Growth.
Yeah, you can bounce back and forth. But as long as you're growing and working through it, right, then
Yeah.
it's healthy.
Yeah. And so depending on your issue, you know, so you'll develop a part of your relationship. So let's say you're developing your communication part of your relationship. And you could really listen and understand each other well and have compassion, which is one of the key things that we teach in clinic, is how to do that process. And so you make a quantum leap at that point where it's like, oh boy, our relationship now is a lot more satisfying. And women love this process because usually most of the female patients that come in, a general complaint is, he's not listening to me. And the truth is you talk to the guys, and he said, I can tell you exactly what she said. And so we're speaking different languages, because as women, you know, when you say he's not listening to me, what you're saying is he doesn't get me, he doesn't feel what I'm feeling, he doesn't have compassion for my experience. True?
True.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so for guys, you know, they're going like, I get it. But so we have a way to bridge that communication gap, because women speak woman and men speak man in their foreign languages. And so we have to be able to learn to speak each other's language a little bit, and vice versa. One of the tips I'll give you as women is women are process oriented, and you have a larger area in your brain for language. So typically when you want to talk about something, you want to give the details. The details are important, and they are part of your emotional experience that you want to convey to your partner so they'll really understand you. The problem is men are primarily left-brained, and we have a certain limit, sort of like, you know how a computer stacks data, and then once it gets full, it starts to drop off data. Well, the male brain's built that way, and if you give us more than about 5 things to think about, it starts to become a little bit confusing and distressing to us. And so what I tell women is get your bullet points down, and, you know, give him the bullet points. Don't give him as much detail, and he'll be a better listener.
In the bedroom.
So we have a lot of neuroscience since the 1990s on the difference between the male and female brain and how that plays out in relationships and sexuality in some really important ways. So moving forward, I'm going to jump to a different PowerPoint here. So give me a moment. I'm going to hand the microphone over to you guys for a minute while I'm setting this up, and let you ask questions if you want, any kind of question. Now, the other thing you can do, I'll put my phone number up here. You can text your question if you don't want to really say it out loud. So,
I love it.
I think if we're here.
So like private question next week, can I text you?
This is pro bono, right? Yeah.
there's a small fee for that.
Process fees may apply.
So here, I'll pass this out. You guys can just be silent if you want to. I guess I need to put my cell phone here on my desk.
We're good. Does anyone have any questions?
I want to have a question, I just gotta think of something.
Okay, here it is.
Oh, there's the magic phone.
Ding me if you have a secret thing.
It'd be fun, the texting.
Yeah. Yeah, so, okay.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, it's a
sexting? Are you saying
sexting?
sexting?
You have a question?
Yeah, pass the mic over so
You
that.
do?
No, not me.
No. We're just gonna put people on the fucking spot. That's what we do.
Let's see.
You have so much to think about that I know that you would have a good question. So I put you on the spot, Craig. He's like, oh shit.
You represent a small population of men here, so.
I think I'm way over here on the female spectrum a little bit for a man.
I love it.
So yeah, I don't know. It's let's see. Do I have a question?
I know.
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Not at the moment.
Anyone? I'll ask somebody else's
I have a
question.
question. How long have you been married?
So you can use the mic and then it'll get picked up.
Oh, okay.
How long have you been married, and what's some advice that you would give to
Your younger
newlyweds?
self.
Oh, I love that question. So,
We're technically newlyweds, but
Oh, you
we're
are?
not well, we've been married for 3.5 years. That's kind of newlywed.
yeah,
Feels
Yeah.
like an
It's a
eternity.
great
Good question. Good question.
different perspectives. So thank you for asking that question. I've been married twice. I was first married when I was 22 years old. I grew up part of my life in Hawaii, and I fell in love with a Polynesian and Asian girl, and we're still great friends today. We were married for 6 years, and we had 2 daughters. I didn't know anything about relationships back then other than, what my heart was telling me. So we got married pretty fast. We came from a faith-based background that encouraged that. And after being married for a while, we decided, maybe that wasn't the best choice. Maybe it was really good to be boyfriend, girlfriend. Maybe it was really good to be friends.
Was
So
there
we-
too much of the delusion showing itself? Is that what happened?
I think a lot of it was just our immaturity.
Yeah.
What we didn't know about life and relationships and other things. On my part, I had very little experience with dating, and so I really wanted more of that. And so that was sort of gnawing away at my heels a little bit. And there was a little bit of cultural difference, but not a lot. But we love each other to this day, and we have 2 beautiful daughters from that relationship. So learned a lot from that in retrospect as a scientist and as a marriage counselor. I could say that I think had we used information that we could have built a really good relationship that was ongoing. But we didn't, and we made that choice, and I think that benefited us as well. So my current wife, Colette, and I have been married since 1979. So if you do the math, it's 40 years now. So
Yeah.
thank you. We earned that applause.
Yes.
So like all marriages, we started out with a very exciting connection in this infatuation stage. First time I saw Colette, like a lot of men, visually I was so attracted to her. I just fell crazy in love with her. It was very much a love at first sight, first moment experience for me. And then as I got to know her, I'm going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this girl will even pay attention to me, because she was, in my opinion, way out of my league. She liked me, so anyway, we ended up getting together and had a bunch of kids. So, but along that journey, actually we had honeymoon babies, and we had 2 babies back to back, and so her hormones went pretty flat. And any of you who have been moms or have had babies or are nursing know that your sex drive takes a bit of a nosedive for most women. And I didn't understand what all that meant as a guy. I was just going, don't you love me anymore? Because as men, we seek closeness through physical touch and sexuality. We're programmed that way. Whereas women are less programmed that way, except at mid-cycle. So, so we're going to be talking about cycling in a moment.
Yeah.
So make a note of that, guys. If you're single, track your girlfriend's cycle.
I've got this app. Could you?
When did you start again?
There is an app for that. It's called P-Tracker. There's several apps for that. So let me bring this down again. And
But hold on, just to bring you back to that, because
Okay.
I feel like there's more that you could add to that story, just knowing your story.
okay.
So you guys had babies, her stuff went down, but then you ended up having issues at that time because of that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you guys went through your own stuff, but yet now you're closer than ever, right?
Colette and I have hired 6 professional counselors
Yeah.
to help us work through our issues. We weren't very good at it either, took us a long time to make it all stick.
So was that all in your newlywed phase then? Just to go back to your question, advice for newlyweds?
No, to talk about me personally, I was 28 when we got married. We probably started getting some resolution to our issues around age 40. So, we were married probably 12 years before we really started making some real significant progress. But to answer your question about newlyweds, newlyweds come into our clinic, and some of the parents that have been through our clinical process send their children in for premarital counseling. And primarily what we teach them is connection skills, communication skills to prepare them. Sometimes we give them a little bit of bedroom advice as well. But mostly we want people to be able to understand, connect, and have the tools to collaborate. We call it collaborative marriage skills. So, yeah.
Do you counsel as a team then together?
We do. Usually our more well-heeled clients will have both of us on board, because if we're both sitting in the room, you're paying for both of us. So occasionally we'll have people come in and they'll just say, hey, cost is no object, we just want the best information that we can get, and so we'll do that. Usually what we do is we tag team. So one of us will work with the patient. There's certain types of patients that I tend to work with, certain types that Colette tends to work with, because we have more expertise in some areas. Some patients prefer to be with a female or a male therapist. I'll usually work a lot with the men. I work a lot with women as well, but men tend to, come in with erectile dysfunction or performance anxiety issues or things like that, and I think they want to hear that more from a male doctor. So, well, hey, let's look at some more of this fun stuff here. This is a PowerPoint presentation. It's actually for a lecture series that I do in San Francisco at the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality, where I'm a professor. And this is a course on endocrinology for sexologists. And I'm just going to jump into this and pull a couple of relevant slides that I think would probably be interesting to you. So bear with me while I jump down here through the slides and find what I'm looking for. So what I'm going to bring up, I'm going to shift our focus to hormones and neurotransmitters and how much influence they have on us and on our relationships. So part of what I'm going to share with you in our little skit that we're going to do in a few minutes is based on the work of a very significant endocrinologist, Teresa Crenshaw, who's written on the topic. She's the former president of the American Society, or the American Association for Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. So an amazing doctor that has a lot of information on this topic. So let's see, let me start with some of her information. Let's see. Okay, so this is called the Love Brigade. This is the ingredients of the soup of the day. So every day, we're talking primarily about female sexuality right now because you're running through your cycle. And when Colette and I go out and lecture, you asked me about my marriage, but I didn't tell you about my other marriages. Because we live in Utah and we sort of have this tradition of having more than one wife here. So, true confessions, I have 28. I have 28 wives. And they're all the same woman, but she's different every day of her cycle. So,
I was like, wait, what?
I thought it was new. I was like news to me.
Yeah.
so
Where am I?
that's some strange form of polygamy, right?
I love
Okay.
it.
I was just getting ready to walk out.
Hey man, you're the guy with the beard. you could pass, you could go down to those places. Hey, and I'm not dissing polygamists. I have some for patients. So everybody needs help in relationships. So I just tell them, hey, I've got 28, so we're on board. So I'm not going to go through all of those in detail, but you can see there's 11 listed hormones and neurotransmitters. So this gets complicated, and if you look at the last one, it says there's over 30 other chemicals that influence sexuality in some way. So we're pretty complicated. people. And all these things drive emotion. So let me show you this little slide. This is a quote from Dr. Crenshaw's book, The Alchemy of Love and Lust. And she says, she calls this sex soup. Clearly, our mating dance, the desires that drive and frustrate us, the bonds we make, the love we give and take, the hearts we break, the differences that delight and infuriate us, the mystery of attraction, sexual chemistry, the agonies and the ecstasies of intimacy, all this and more is influenced by the ever-changing bouillabaisse of chemicals in our bodies that I think of as sex soup. So if you come into clinic and work with this, quite often what drives couples into clinic is what we call desire discrepancy. So you've got a high drive person and a low drive person. Often the low drive person thinks that their high drive partner is a sex addict. And the colloquial definition of a sex addict is somebody who likes sex more than you do. That makes you a sex addict.
Yes.
So quite often that discrepancy, because of the testosterone levels in males, we have 20 times the testosterone level that females have. And that we also cycle every 24 hours. So there's a time it peaks for us. It's usually early in the mornings. Between 3:30 and 5:30 a.m. we tend to peak out. And that's not a time that our wives want to be awakened, you know, just because we're feeling frisky. Crenshaw calls hormones and neurotransmitters bosses and bullies because they really cause us to have different behavior. And those phases that we were talking about, the attraction phase, there's a courtship phase, there's a bonding phase, and there's a commitment phase. And all of those phases of relationship have very specific chemicals that are driving all of that behavior within us. So science is really fun to look at when we look at all of this kind of stuff. So now I want to pass out a handout that we're going to look at. Yeah, please. There, let's see, they're right here.
So all those chemicals that you had before this slide, are they just
One of
all
these.
released by different
And one of these.
different timing and different
Here,
things?
use this.
I was just curious about the chemicals, if, is anybody ever low on them, or is that something like, you know what I mean, I guess, is it just science that everybody has those and they're released by different actions and, you know, interactions obviously, but,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, I don't know, can you go back?
Is that
to
it?
the group?
Kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like,
yeah.
Like if you have a lower sex drive than your
Yeah.
partner, could you be deficient in, say, one of those hormones?
Yeah. well, I know like sometimes obviously giving a hug releases serotonin.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
dopamine
Yeah.
and-
Yeah,
So I just didn't know if like everyone's just getting that naturally, or do we need to do certain things to get more of that?
so that's what makes science fun, is that you can figure out how to do all that sort of stuff.
Like I
Um,
take a root every day that helps with like libido and stuff, but I just don't think I really have an issue, but it has a lot of other great benefits, but I don't recommend it for men. 'Cause I feel like it makes them like a bunny rabbit, so you're like, it's too much.
So yeah, because we're built with different hormones that drive us as males and females, then you know the medications and supplements will affect us differently. So to answer your question, when people come in and there is desire discrepancy, when we do the analysis, one of the first things we look at is, are you on any medications?
Okay.
Because there's a whole lot of medications that will dumb down your sex drive, your desire, and your orgasmic response. The main culprit is any selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor or antidepressant in the SSRI class of nuts like Celexa, Prozac, those types of medications. Utah is the highest consumer of those medications. And so we know that when a lot of people come in that's negatively impacting their relationship. The other thing that a lot of women are unaware of, and my own older brother is an OBGYN, so I'm friends with the OBGYN community, but what they tell me when I go and lecture about sexuality at the hospital or with doctors that are practicing gynecology, they say we get very little training about human sexuality, and we have a lot of our patients come in and ask us questions about human sexuality, but we have to refer them over to you for treatment because we're not trained in how to do that. We're trained in reproductive health care. And so one of the most common birth controls right now is the Mirena Iud, which is really good for preventing pregnancy. So doctors love to prescribe it. The problem is it's a slow release progesterone IUD. And in a minute, we're going to look at what happens when your body's on progesterone all the time. And what it does is it really messes up with your sex drive.
Yeah.
So when you come in, we look at, where are you biologically? Do you have any health conditions or
What
do you
are
have
you
any
taking?
medications?
Yeah, okay.
What's your birth control? All of those things, because they will influence and alter all of this stuff. And then in addition to
Case
that,
by case, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was recently at a bridal shower, and obviously after 5 to 6 glasses of wine, everyone gets talking about everything, and
Yeah.
I was honestly blown away. And I don't really believe in Western medicine. I stay pretty much holistic in everything I do. Not everything, but
Yeah, as much as you can.
as much as I can, yeah. But almost 90% of these women were on antidepressants, and they were talking about their sex drive, and I'm just like over there, like, what? Like, I'm feeling really bad for them. So I told them about the
Yeah.
maca root that I take, and that's just maybe
Yeah.
one step. But I was just honestly blown away, and maybe I'm just a little oblivious to it, but because I don't take it myself.
yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's crazy to me. So.
Which I would think creates a more downward spiral, right?
Absolutely.
You're depressed, you think you're going to take this instant pill that's going to make you happy, then all of a sudden it makes your sex drive go down, and then you're fighting more, and you're not getting off, you're not, you know what I mean? Which
And you're more on autopilot.
continuously creates this downward cycle. So your holistic is a lot better, the roots or whatever, in addition to finding out what is your baseline, who are you and what's going on in your body, because there are so many contributing factors, obviously, as you saw, that contribute towards, do you want to have sex?
Yeah.
Do you not? How often? Does it feel good? Do you not? There's so many psychologically, physical, biology, you're going to go into all that, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about
So
it right
much
now.
shit.
I was just curious. I guess each of the hormones intrigued me a little bit. I was like, ooh, like,
Yeah.
what do I need to do to release
Well, and
some
maybe
of
we
that?
should go
That's
get-
what I don't
I'm
have.
writing it down, like, okay, make sure.
More
that's-
serotonin.
So you guys are on the
switch.
right track because in a minute we're going to do this skit. And you've been thinking about volunteering, right?
Yes.
I need 5 volunteers when we do this. But you mentioned maca root, and what I will say is there are double-blind, placebo-controlled studies that are published in the scientific literature that shows that maca root is good for people that are on SSRI medications because it counters the negative side effect from that drug. So when we have people that come in and that we can't taper them off of that and put them on 5-HTP, which doesn't have that strong of a side effect, then we will suggest that they do a trial with maca.
It's amazing. I put it in my smoothies, and it just makes
Yeah.
me feel like I have a higher energy throughout the day,
Yeah.
and I don't have to take energy drinks.
There's a lot of very viable non-prescription things that can influence hormones, and because they occur naturally in nature, they can't be pharmaceutical companies can't copyright.
Back it or-
Yeah, they can't
That's
claim
That's
that.
interesting to know, though. That
Yeah.
will help.
Yeah, so when we prioritize when couples come in, our clinical model is that we prioritize diet and exercise first to get your body balanced. Secondly, if you need supplementation, we do that. And last resort is medications. The other thing we do is we will run a blood test so we can see exactly where your hormones are. So that's always very helpful. So if you want to refer to the first handout that I gave you, it's the female hormonal cycle. See how we doing on time? Are we supposed to wrap at 1:30?
We're good.
If I go over 1:30, or is that a problem? Okay. I have a patient at 2, so I'll leave by then.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're learning, we're here.
So let's see, let me find this next little piece. Okay, so everybody see that chart okay?
Yeah.
So I gave you a handout that's very similar to that chart, but I wanted to pull this one up because it's in color for you. So some females go like, hey, this is my body, I kind of know this stuff. I'm surprised how many females that come into clinic and they go like, I kind of really don't know exactly what happens to me hormonally during my cycle, I just know how I feel. And most guys go like, wow, this is news. You know. I also know how she feels because it has an impact in some way, and it seems like every 4 weeks we get into a big argument, you know. So, but here it is in a little bit more detail. So what we have in this chart is several components. This very top piece right here, that's a little representation of the hypothalamus in your brain that sends all the chemical signals to all of your target organs and tells them what to do, what to manufacture. And in this case, the hypothalamus is talking to the female ovary, which is going to go through changes through the ovarian cycle. So this next little chart across here and on your handout, it shows little pictures of ovaries, shows what's happening to a follicle, one follicle in the ovary as you're going through the cycle. This next part's going to tell you, you know, what the hormone levels are with estrogen and progesterone, and then this is showing the impact on the endometrial lining inside the uterus, how it thickens, and then without implantation will slough off and you have your bleeding time. So is everybody familiar with this, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody, this is like news? Come on, you guys, raise your hands.
I mean, I've seen it.
Okay. So we're gonna take a quick peek at this, and then we're gonna do our skit, because we're gonna look at 5 different hormonal events that happen during the course of your cycle that changes your behavior radically. So pay attention, guys. So there you see some gray arrows and some brown arrows up here. These represent the hormonal message going from the pituitary to the ovary. So these gray arrows, you see them, they get bold, and then here they get a little skinny in the middle. They are follicle stimulating hormone. So this is a hormone the brain manufactures, sends it to the ovary and says, ripen a follicle and release an egg at some point. The brown arrows, you can see they're really bold at mid-cycle and really skinny at the beginning. That's luteinizing hormone, and it tells the ovary to release the egg. So at the bottom of the chart we have days, and you can see the bleeding time here and here, which is typically 4 days if you have a 28-day cycle. So at the end of your bleeding time, then you start going through your cycle. Mid-cycle happens here, where ovulation takes place, okay? So my wife calls this spring and summer, and she calls this fall and winter. And pretty much, you know, as you move through your cycle and the way you feel, those are somewhat appropriate terms. So let's take a quick run through this and take a look at what's happening. So we finish our bleeding time. There's a little bit of blip of estrogen. And by the way, estrogen's quality is it gives women energy, it makes them nurturing and happy. So woohoo, we all love estrogen, okay? So as you start to go through your cycle here and approach mid-cycle, it bumps up. So about day 10, girls are pretty energetic, they're happy-go-lucky, and they're starting to feel maybe a little frisky if things are okay in the relationship. So if you're a good listener, you know, and you've been a good partner and you're processing with your gal right, then you're not only going to get lucky, you're going to get loved, which is better than even being lucky. So, so you can see, you know, the follicle is getting bigger and bigger and bigger here, and then at mid-cycle, we get this luteinizing hormone, big burst of it, and it releases that egg. So now's your chance to get pregnant. And we're going to see in this little skit what happens to you, because your behavior and your mood is going to alter in a really significant way to influence you towards getting pregnant. And then, after that happens, the follicle actually turns yellow. It's physically yellow. And so it starts to produce progesterone. Progesterone is our friend and our enemy. It's a double-edged sword. Progesterone makes you gain water weight, so things don't fit so well anymore. You don't quite feel as frisky. It's just not quite as good as spring and summer was. Yes?
So then is there another alternative to an IUD that doesn't do all that?
There is a copper IUD.
Is it who?
Copper.
Copper?
It's called the copper T.
I went from one to the other.
Yeah.
When I was on
It's
Monday.
time to swap it out, and I should
Yeah.
swap it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
I'm swapping mine,
too.
I'm getting mine out, but Cam agreed to get it something.
Yeah, so
Baby men's net. Way better.
I ain't putting no more.
for
I've had
couples,
hormones in 7 years.
for couples or individuals who prefer IUDs, we usually recommend, because of the hormonal side effect, that they ask their doctor for a trial with the copper T IUD. So, okay, see, so you got something out of this today, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you a lot.
So, okay, so moving forward, I'll just leave that little chart up there. So does anybody have any questions about this stuff or the little handout chart that I gave you? It's the same information on there.
So estrogen is our friend.
So that's why the bloating happens right before you have your period again.
And you're like, well, it's bad.
Yes.
Because I feel like
Yeah.
I bloated like the week before.
I do too.
And then I'm
after
good,
I
yeah.
Yeah, progesterone contributes a lot. So now we're going to do our skit. Okay, I need my 5 volunteers. And
I'll volunteer.
it's really helpful
We'll volunteer.
to have some guys.
So three of us and you guys, unless anybody else wants
Okay.
to.
Oh, good. Here we go. Oh, and so, hey, you need to bring your script.
Oh, yeah.
You need to bring your script because,
Can I shut that?
oh, yeah,
Just so it doesn't
Are you
blind
guys
me?
doing
Yeah.
a skit?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm so happy.
We're doing a skit.
Hey, hey,
Yeah, got
hey.
you.
I'm so happy.
Awesome.
Which one's gonna be the bitch? Me and
Okay.
I'll be exactly who I am on a daily basis.
my
So-
A little overactive.
I'm sorry, but I get to choose.
Overactive.
So,
I love it.
there are costumes that go with this.
Oh.
So,
Oh.
so yeah, we're gonna make it more fun.
Lingerie.
What does progesterone look
So
like? 'Cause
let's
that's
see.
me.
I'll go with, who's going nude?
Who's going
I'm a
nude?
nudist.
I'm wearing the flannel nightgown.
So-
That's where I'm at in life.
I need a woman to be the testosterone high woman.
That's-
So who wants to
You
do
could
that?
be
I'll be
tested.
at.
Okay,
I'll be
all right.
testy.
Okay. So,
You got testy love. Yeah.
so this is your costume,
Oh, okay.
okay? Because if you look carefully at what you're going to be wearing, you're going to have to go take your dress off.
Oh.
Because it says you're going to be nude.
You gotta cover
So,
up your bit.
but since this is kind of like a PG rated thing here,
Yeah, get it.
I'm on wait. I don't got that long of a.
we can just
Yeah.
use our imagination.
That's huge.
But those are Instagram approved
Yes.
censorship blocks
Oh my God, I
that you
love
can
it.
hold in front of your body.
I love it.
Okay?
Censorship.
All right, let's see what else we got. So,
a second. I'm going down on my own.
You're going, man.
So
Oh,
Let's
okay, I see what we're doing.
for the next costume, let's see, we need an estrogen high woman, and this needs to be played by a male.
Oh, where did you go? Come on down.
Okay? So you're gonna like can you see what your costume is on the script?
Black lace lingerie.
Ooh, baby.
Ooh.
Meow.
I'm jealous. Can I borrow it?
You're gonna like
naked.
this. So I'll tell you, we also work with the LGBT community, which I love.
Oh, that's perfect.
So I
Literally.
know my cross-dressing patients and my trans patients would love to wear this corset.
Oh, I love
So
that.
this is for you.
Yes.
Just-
Here, I'll help you put it on.
Wait, you'll have to help.
Yeah.
Linda.
I got you.
It,
He's like, what do I do with
it
this?
hooks in the front. So just wrap it
Turn
around in there,
Just
yeah.
like that.
See if you can
Ooh,
hook it in the
sexy.
front.
I love it.
You might only get a couple hooks.
That's okay, we got it.
Okay, you're looking hot, man.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Okay.
you are. Oh, yeah, baby. You are looking hot, actually. Yeah, dang. Where do I buy one of those?
Okay, so
like that hook.
the ovulating woman.
Easy to take off.
Okay. So
I love it.
I need a guy to be the ovulating woman,
There you go.
and so
Look, you're gonna be an ovulating woman.
PJs.
So-
I'm frisky.
did you notice the way he said that? Could you do it again?
I'm frisky.
I love it.
No, say silk PJs again.
Oh, silk PJs.
Yeah. Okay. Whoa. Hey, I think I'm gonna hire you for an assistant or something.
I love it. He's on top 30.
So you're going to have to use your imagination a bit with the silk PJs, because I'm looking in my bag here and it looks like somebody stole them.
You can just give me your bag.
They borrowed them.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh, okay, here you go.
Where's the bag?
Silk PJs.
Oh.
I'm a little shy.
You're gonna, you might have to rip a hole in that, because you're going to have to be able to read your script. Okay, so the progesterone
Tuck
high
it in your
woman.
shirt. Tuck it in right here.
Who wants to be the progesterone high
Oh, it's
woman?
a mini one. It doesn't even cover the tip.
Oh, I love that one.
So you can actually put that on if you want to. It's
Yes, get it. Oh,
okay.
go.
And it's an official cat on the hat, so it's too cool, right? So flannel nightgown, but you know,
yes.
flannel onesie will do the job. Okay.
Yes, do it.
And last but not least is our
You even can rock
PMS woman.
That would be me. Hey.
So your costume is your old torn T-shirt.
Oh, yes.
So-
Old torn t-shirt.
Actually, those can be really hot. You know, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay.
With nothing on underneath.
They actually really can.
All of these are.
Oh, yeah.
They're all.
Okay. So.
It's a really good one.
I love that your hair's up with it. It's just so hot. I love it. So goes.
I love the way the corset fits you. It's So can you just turn around and show us the back? So nice. So nice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I love it.
Okay. So
Now what?
what you didn't see on the slide, because we looked at estrogen and progesterone, you didn't see testosterone. And women have testosterone, and it peaks every 24 hours. So what time? Who asked that question?
We all did.
Good question. Yeah. It depends on your circadian rhythm. So, but if we overlaid testosterone on that chart, it would just be a continuous, jagged, up and down line, peaking every 24 hours. So testosterone mixes into the soup of the day, but there will be some days when it becomes the dominant hormone, And so these scripts that you're going to read is when, as a female, you're dominant with this particular hormone, because it will take over and sort of run the show on your mood and your behavior. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
I'm like, I'm relating 100%.
I'm pretty sure it's more than once every 24 hours.
So this has been, what we didn't tell you about the videotape is, you know, the videotapes can be sent to Hollywood as an audition tape. So if any of you have ambitions about being a real actor, now's the time to like be able to put it on, okay? So
That one's going somewhere.
so everybody grab your script. So so who's our testosterone high woman?
Me.
The naked girl over here. Okay. So no, you will notice that she's nude. Okay. Appropriately nude.
Oh.
And so she's going to give us the dinner talk and the sexual overture. So go for it.
Am I supposed to be talking in any particular way?
In a testosterone highway.
So in other words, I'm
Sexy, you're horny.
horny as fuck. Okay. So my dinner talk. I'm taking you out tonight.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Red Lobster.
My sexual overture, yes, Red Lobster. No crab. Hold the crabs. Hold it. Sorry. Back into acting. Here we go. Sexual overture. What does that mean? That just means like overly sexual?
No, so an overture is a gesture towards the other person.
Oh.
So like if I do this to you, that's a sexual overture.
Oh, so now I'm like, nate. Okay. Oh my God. Oh God. Here we go. Yes. Okay.
This is perfect for you.
Oh. The jacuzzi is hot. And so am I. Let me tear off all your clothes.
She's good. This is Academy Award worthy. All right. So pulling back for a moment, going back into the serious part of your brain. As women, is there a moment in your cycle, if you're okay in your relationship and you don't completely hate your partner, that you feel this way? You know, that where it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
kind of feeling frisky.
Animalistic.
Okay. Okay, so now, and if you have a pencil and you want to write a note on this, as testosterone's quality is that it is assertive. Okay? So testosterone makes women assertive, not only sexually assertive, but generally assertive in other ways.
So that's probably why I like men, because they're a lot more cut and dry.
Yeah.
We're like the emotion, we're like the way you said it though, it doesn't resonate, right? Like, and they're just like, no, I just said this. Like, so it's that assertiveness.
Yeah, at a certain level. And men have progesterone and estrogen too, but at really minimal levels, and so it influences us a bit
That makes sense.
too.
I like it.
Okay.
Let's hear you, Ryan.
So estrogen, you're getting excited, right, Ryan?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the quality of estrogen is it's nurturing. So notice, you know, how the person's dressed, what the dinner talk and what the sexual overture is. It's more landing towards relationship connection. Okay, so let's go here. Wow, you look so good.
I picked some appetizers for you. There's champagne in the ice bucket. Would you set up some candles and music for us, darling? Would you like a back rub? I'll heat up some oil.
I really liked the ad lib of "Darling," which wasn't in the script.
Yeah, you better put that on there.
So good job, Ryan. Good job.
That is awesome.
Okay, so now at ovulation, your hormones shift over. The key word for ovulation is receptive. So when you're ovulating, it's sort of like it's whatever you want, hon. That kind of thing. Because nature wants you to like just be sort of follow the lead, you know, just have sex and have babies, okay?
Sure.
So, okay, dive in.
Want me to cook you something, hun? What would you like? Sure.
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 Sure, go ahead.
So, a 6-course dinner, please, and lots of oysters.
Yes.
And your answer was what?
Sure.
Well, you got to give me more Femmies.
Oh.
Sure.
Sure.
Oh, so nice, so nice.
What would be sure?
Man,
Sure. There you go. That's
Oh, it could have been.
Let's try that again. One more. One more.
There's no explanation point. I mean, this is not textbook.
Sure.
There you go. There you go. That sounded a little
I'm so
more.
excited.
It had extra syllables.
Yeah.
That was good. Sure.
so you're catching on to this, right?
Yeah.
You know, we've got so far 3 different women.
Yeah.
You know, these are 3 of my wives.
Very
My-
different.
You know, you two still need a sex change operation before you can do that.
I'm working on it.
Okay. All right, now we come to progesterone. Now, if you remember, progesterone sort of throws you a little bit off. It's a bit of an anti-aphrodisiac. So the quality of progesterone is it makes you feel a little out of sorts, you know? So,
Oh, I could have done that one.
Oh yeah, that is me.
so this is you.
It's me. I don't want to move. I'm so tired and depressed. Besides, I feel so fat and bloated. The last thing I want to do is go out. I can't fit in anything anyway. Sorry, I'm just thinking about this big thing I'm wearing. Look at me. I'd rather just read.
Look at me.
I'd rather just read a book and watch TV. Is there anything good on? Not tonight, dear. Just hold me.
Oh,
I totally know that feeling, though. I totally can relate to it all.
No, for sure. Me too.
I love it. You pulled it off well. That was good.
So-
That was good. Look at me.
wise men at this point
I love it.
really want to cuddle on the couch,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Just cuddle.
Yes.
Just cut off.
So
This is why Netflix was invented.
it
Yes.
was.
Netflix and chill.
And you have to watch something that's relationship oriented. It can't be the sexy movie.
Yeah. Don't make me feel insecure about myself. Put
Yeah.
on like someone
Yeah.
that's ugly with a face.
Exactly.
Just watch Narcos.
I'm not depressed, okay?
You did that, so
You did. You did.
you've had practice.
Stop giggling.
You've had practice, right?
No.
Oh, no?
No. I do not go on stage or act.
No, I need
No,
practice
Practice once a month.
being progesterone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That's
She's
like
like-
acting.
Oh.
Okay, so now we
I love it.
saved the best for last.
Oh God, I love it.
PMS Woman.
Yes.
So
Alright.
she's
Yeah.
wearing her old torn T-shirt.
Yes.
So, okay, let us have it.
Okay.
I love it.
Get your own. I don't feel like cooking tonight. As a matter of fact, why don't you get mine for a change? You never do anything around here but sit around watching your stupid sports. You always expect me to wait on you and never offer to help. I don't know why I put up with you. When was the last time you did anything nice? I haven't seen any flowers since the last funeral.
That was terrible.
Okay, oh shit. Where's my vibrator? Did you borrow my batteries again?
For my PlayStation.
I told you never to do that. Now what am I going to do?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that
this
was
is where I'm at on a
so
daily
salty.
basis.
All
I
right,
could be
let's,
like that.
let's give everybody a big hand for their performance. So instead of Academy Award
Let me help you get
little
naked.
statues,
You have staff.
I promised you rewards, right?
Oh, we got awards?
You get awards, rewards.
Rewards award.
So because I want to raise your phenylethylamine, which will make you feel more loving, and because I don't want to sugar high you,
No, you're good.
everybody gets a Lily's original chocolate sweetened with stevia instead of sugar. So
Oh,
there
thank
we go.
Thank
There we go.
you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Need one of those.
Yeah.
Sweet natural.
So it pays. Pays to volunteer.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
So
That was fun. Good job.
at the bottom of the handout, the reference for this book. If you want to learn a lot about hormones and neurotransmitters, this is the best book out there that you can learn that from. It's called The Alchemy of Love and Lust by Teresa Crenshaw, who is both a sexologist and an endocrinologist. And this is her script. So I take no responsibility
For all that awesomeness.
for all this stuff, so you can't throw tomatoes
Yes.
for being blamed. Now, since we've sort of talked about women, very briefly, I will mention that males go through all of these phases every 24 hours. Every 24
I believe
hours.
that.
So every day we go through our own hormone cycle, but it's a little less pronounced than it is here because we have.
And then all of a sudden they're naked.
At least not bleeding every 24 hours.
So my male PMS hits me between about 5 and 7 p.m.
5 and 7.
That's usually when I feel, not as resourced, and so.
After a long day at work.
Yeah. So, any questions about this? Do you guys have fun with that?
Yeah.
That's good. So, yeah, please, here, use the mic.
I'm on an oral contraceptive,
Okay.
and it's a really low dose.
Okay.
But when I'm off, or when I on my period and then start to cycle, or start to take my birth control again, I get these crazy headaches
Ah.
that are like migraine. That's why I switched to the lower dose, but I'm still getting them now. What's that about?
Yeah.
You know?
Help a sister out.
So, if we wanted to be really, really accurate and specific, you can do blood draws and kind of see what's going on with that, what your hormone levels are. But in general, a chemical birth control all uses progesterone. So anytime you're using that, you're extending this progesterone period. And if you're on Mirena, that first half of your cycle, spring and summer, is not really fully spring and summer, so you're getting progesterone from that, and it's going to make you not feel as well. And when you go off, if you shift over to a copper T IUD, it may even take a month or two before your body readapts. Having some of that residual stuff. But to answer your question directly, if you were my patient and you're in clinic, I'd probably see if you're, with your OBGYN, if you're a good candidate for an IUD, that a copper T IUD would be a better form of birth control than anything that releases progesterone. So
So you were actually doing testing and are giving it for free for testing and stuff. My friend was on it.
I got on. So I was recommended by actually Mandy and Frank to that hormone specialist out in Sunset, and they said, "Oh, you have hypothyroid. You're low on this. You're low on that." And they gave me testosterone and progesterone and all these things that they said I was low on. But I tried taking them for about a month and I felt like shit. So I too, one of the progesterone pills made me almost bring a migraine back. And you know how I get with migraines, I'm out. And I was like, I am not taking any of this. None of those benefits make it worth it. So I think everyone's unique in its own, but I think it would be a good place to start is getting your blood work done and seeing, what options you have or what you may or may not be low on. What's your advice on hormone therapy? since you see that.
So usually where we start is if people are feeling out of sorts or imbalanced, we'll do blood work and see where your hormones are at. And if they're out of balance, then there's a lot of approaches to rebalancing it. The first thing we look at is, how is your general health? Are you on any medications? Do we need to get you off of those meds and onto something else? What's your diet like?
Yeah.
So, people that come into clinic, sometimes I'll do a dietary analysis with them and we'll go like, are you eating junk food? What we do with our dietary protocol is we classify foods into 4 groups, from things that are going to be like super good for you to like poison, and go like, it's group 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we give you a little handout and we encourage you to eat foods out of the top 2 groups because they're going to probably rebalance you, and then make sure that you're having a regular exercise program. So diet and exercise, of course, is the thing that's going to get your body healthy and rebalance your hormones more likely than anything else. Stress is a big deal because stress triggers cortisol, and your cortisol, if it goes up, it'll start to affect your other hormones. Your thyroid can affect a lot of things. So hormones, you want to imagine them as an art mobile. So if you have a string hanging from the ceiling here and you've got some arms coming out and there's little arty things hanging from them, and that's just sitting there in some sort of balance, if we walk over and grab one of those and shift it, the whole thing will move. And so what happens is when one hormone goes out of balance, the body tries to compensate, and it can actually convert. So the sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, are very, very similar biochemically, and they're all made out of cholesterol. So the body takes cholesterol and says, hey, what do we need here? And it starts to manufacture stuff. And if you go deficient in something, it can borrow. It'll go like, hey, I need this, and so I'm going to take this and convert it over to that. So your body's pretty smart. It's trying to, keep you as healthy as possible. The other thing that really interferes is our recreational use of, alcohol, weed, all that other stuff. So even caffeine can really dehydrate your brain and throw it way out of balance. And so those are all commonly used. So we're going like, so when you're using much of that to self-medicate, we want to go after the underlying depression or anxiety or the other things that are going on that are driving you doing the self-medication, because we can't just say, well, like, hey, go off all that stuff. I mean, we can, but you're not going to feel good doing it. You're going to go, hey, this is my coping thing. I can't work without caffeine, or I can't chill without weed. So we want to go and work with your emotional self and your psychological self, to be able to help that. Yeah.
So I just got back from Life Mastery, Tony Robbins, and it was the Life Mastery where they go through a lot of what they talk about is diet, exercise, and mastering your life that way and going as alkaline as possible. So since then, I've only had 3 glasses of alcohol in the last 2 weeks, and I've had no coffee at all in 2 weeks. And I can tell you, even though I'm clear, I feel like shit. So is that my body detoxing? Or what would you suggest? Like, how long do you think, being a scientist, that would take for something that I regularly did, I guess you could say, to then become my new norm of going without?
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's kind of like hormones, right? You go through these phases of feeling good and not good. I feel like I'm going through a phase of like detox-ish.
So on caffeine, if you've been using it for a long time, you're going through caffeine withdrawal. And oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
I drink
So-
like a pot a day.
So Dr. Amen, you guys know who Dr. Daniel Amen is? He's the brain scientist that does a lot of brain scanning stuff. If you read any of his books, he has 5 New York Times best-selling books: Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, The Brain in Love. These all go into your neurochemistry and how you're affected by that. He says in his work that minimal use of caffeine shouldn't have that big of an effect of you. So we're talking about a cup of coffee per day or something like that. But more people use more than that. Our bodies adjust to chemicals that we put into them. So if we're using them for a while, it takes a while for us to sort of rebalance. Things that women don't think about a lot of times that are toxic to their body. A lot of hair coloring products are toxic and they're absorbed in through the skin. Even nail polish can be absorbed into the body. And so be careful about all of your soaps, your lotions, all that kind of stuff. Try to find things that are more organic, more holistic. There's a really great book that was published years ago by a person who makes cosmetics, and it's called Cosmetics in Your Kitchen. And the author said, when we make a cosmetic, it won't preserve long enough if we make it out of fresh food, but you can make it at home. And he shows you how to do stuff with like honey and putting stuff in the blender and putting it on your skin and lemon juice and all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, so yeah, a lot of that stuff.
I use a lot of that at home.
It's convenient to buy the products, they're marketed to us, but there's a lot of stuff, and if you get online, you can kind of find some good information about that. People who are really trying to live holistically will start to alter over and go like, hey, let me put food on my body instead of a lot of chemistry. So that's another way to manage that. So,
I want to say too, food, your diet and exercise affects so much. Because I went through the same phase. I was on the Mirena, I was on antidepressants, and the second I said no, I'm against birth control because I hate how the way it makes me.
Yep.
That's just me. But so I changed my diet I got allergy tested for something, changed my diet, exercise, went off all those, and then I was a totally different person. It flopped completely.
I believe that.
It took about 6 months to feel better because I drink coffee like crazy, and I'm back in that bad phase now, so I know exactly what. But that alone will just fix a lot of problems.
That's what I'm going through
And
right
drinking
now.
a lot of water.
Oh yeah, water is
Huge.
And then, like I said, I don't like the antidepressants and the birth control. I will never take again.
Which
Which
I'll
is
make
kind
for
of not the same. I
a
mean,
great sex life when you feel good.
yeah.
Right?
So, but then again, there's that other part of it where you gotta be super careful. But
yeah.
anyway,
I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
So mechanical birth control methods can be fairly effective, without using the hormonal ones. The hormonal ones have a little bit higher efficacy as far as preventing pregnancy. But if you're using dual barrier methods, where the male is wearing a condom and the female is using a barrier method, or an IUD that's non-hormonal, it's pretty much, you're not going to get pregnant, So, and some people who feel okay about using, the 24-hour, 48-hour pill, that you can take if, hey, I think I'm pregnant, what's it called, the after.
Oh, the
That'll be
Plan
good.
B.
Plan B, yes, thank you.
I mean,
So-
took that with tape. Didn't work.
So-
Thank God it didn't.
So, diet,
God was like,
nutrition
no, you're going Plan A.
are really essential to your well-being. And again, a recommended book for you to read would be The Brain in Love by Daniel Amen. He'll go really deep into the neuroscience. And I did training with Dr. Amen. We use his methods in our clinic. I'll tell you real briefly one story about somebody that we use brain scanning on. So you can have your brain scanned and we can look inside your head and know exactly how healthy your brain is or not, and how to rebalance these areas. But it's expensive. When you come in, we do a paper and pencil test with you, and if you're symptomatic, because of the correlation of the questions with a database of over 30,000 brain scans, we can say with high probability or medium probability or low probability whether different areas of your brain are out of balance. So one of the biggest problems that people have behaviorally is ADD. There's a part of our brain called our prefrontal cortex. And it's sort of our Jiminy Cricket, and it's our filter. And so when it's active, when it gets plenty of blood flow, we make better decisions, we don't blurt out stupid things, we don't make as many mistakes. It's very, very common in the population to have ADD. People with ADD are not bad people. They have a brain condition. And the way that they usually self-medicate is caffeine or any kind of stimulant, because it'll pump up that part of the brain so they can have more focus. And if you have kids that have ADD, they put them on Ritalin and things like that. So, but if your prefrontal is down, your decision-making process isn't the best. So the other thing is when we're in a state of sexual arousal, we're in an altered state. We're drunk on sex and on arousal, and it affects people more significantly than other people. But nature is taking over biologically and saying, hey, you guys need to mate and reproduce. And so going into an altered state of consciousness is, probably a good idea from that perspective. For men, we're visually oriented. Our brain is built to mate select primarily visually first. So you're probably aware of that. The women in this room are all dressed attractively, wearing cute clothes, cool shoes. You go to the hairstylist, you have your nails done. Why?
Yeah.
Why? What's that about?
By nature, maybe.
It's all bait.
So as long as it's not the bait and switch, we're good.
I asked my wife that. I said, why do you do that? And she says, well, because I want to look pretty. And why do you want to look pretty? Well, she'll say for me, but she'll also say for myself. I like to look in the mirror. It gives me a sense of self-worth. And I also like to look pretty for other girls. Because at some level, there's a competition a bit going on, right? So, but by nature, women do what we call grooming behavior or display behavior. And you do it more at ovulation. So there's a scientific study where they would go to a nightclub, and they would ask people to, as they're entering the club, to do a saliva test. And at the same time, they'd be photographed front and back. And then they would scan the photos into a database and calculate the percentage of skin that is shown by the way the girl's dressed. Is she more covered up, or is she showing more skin? And the saliva test will tell you if you're ovulating. There's a correlation between ovulation and display behavior. Women are showing more skin when they're ovulating.
Wow.
Like, come and get me, guys.
Yeah.
So.
Put it in their subconscious, just in their biology.
Yeah, it's in our biology, it's in our programming. Wow. So men tend to be visually oriented, and as sexologists, in order to learn about human sexuality, we have to observe human sexuality. We observe a lot of it on film, but sometimes when we're doing scientific work, we'll observe it live, and we'll wire people up and watch them have sex. And so one of the things that we learn is that males tend to watch their partner while they're making love to them. They want that visual feedback. They want to see, are they getting excited? Their excitement feeds our excitement. Women a lot of times close their eyes because they're focusing on sensation. What's my body doing? What am I feeling? Not always. We like eye contact, and sometimes we like to talk. But in general, men look more and get more aroused by seeing than by the context of what's going on. So female porn, quote unquote, because nobody can define porn, there's no scientific definition of porn. I'm not going to go into the porn talk too far, but I spoke in Germany a couple years ago at a conference on pornography. What is it? How does it affect people? All that kind of stuff. And our research shows that nobody can define it. There's no scientific definition because the definition is subjective. Depends on the person. So, in general, people go, yeah, those are pictures of naked people or naked people having sex. But what people would consider to be erotic or pornographic, it depends on their own subjective point of view. So female porn is romance novels. So anybody ever read a romance novel?
You like that?
Hey, I like when guys read romance novels. So the hallmark of romance novels is whoever the guy is, whether he's a billionaire or a construction worker, the general theme throughout the whole thing is he can't eat, sleep, or breathe and not think about the girl. Right? He's just so enamored with this girl and the whole story, you know, all the things that they go through and their courtship and everything. The main thing that's turning the reader on, and you know, romance novels are written by women, is about the guy wants you. He can't think about anybody else but you, right?
Mm-hmm.
True?
Yeah, it's true.
Okay?
To know that you're wanted.
Yeah, so that's what turns women on. Where men, we like the story too, but if it doesn't have the pictures with it, it's not quite as exciting, you know? So a little bit of brain science there. So I'm kind of watching the time. I probably should move to this next element before we wrap up, because I do have a patient at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
So in the course of all this, anybody have any more burning questions that they want to throw out there? Yeah.
What's that? So, you know, because obviously sex and orgasms and all those things release what? Serotonin? Or release some kind of dopamine or something to help you feel on that erotic high?
All kinds of things, yeah.
Okay, so what is a healthy amount to stay in flow, I guess, of sex to be having in a week, say with couples or whatever? Like, because to feed the needs of male, right? They want it all day, every day, and females maybe not so much because they feel like they're bloated and they just want to be cuddled on the couch or maybe be told to their husband to fuck off. But what is a healthy amount of sex to be having on average with the studies that you've seen?
So the qualifier on that is when you said on average,
Yeah.
okay? That's really different than what may be healthy for an individual or a couple.
Mm.
So that's a question everybody asks, you know, what's normal? Am I normal? What's the normal amount of sex for people to have?
I'm just curious.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, it's age dependent.
Mm.
So as we're at different ages, our bodies work differently. But in general, if you're between the ages of maybe 18, well, we'll roll it back to 17 because 17 is the age when in the United States, statistically, most women have their first intercourse, whether they're married or not. So we'll kind of start there and we'll wind it up to menopause or andropause, which is when our hormones start to take their nosedive. So statistical averages is about 2.5 times per week is what people generally do, but that's statistical average. So I have couples that come in and they're going, we're not having enough sex.
Mm.
So before I comment on that, I will, and this may date me, but this is a classic film, so you may have seen Woody Allen's movie where there's a split screen and Woody Allen's laying on his psychiatrist's couch and his girlfriend is sitting on her psychiatrist's couch. And they ask the question to both of them, how often do you have sex? And she says, oh, we have sex all the time. We have sex 3 times a week. And then the split screen on the other guy's like, we never have sex. We only have sex 3 times a week, you know? So basically it's pretty subjective and it's sort of what your body wants. But again, as we looked at all this biochemistry stuff, if you're throwing your body out of balance because of bad diet or substance abuse or you're on a lot of medications or birth control things that are throwing you off balance, it's going to really throw that stuff off balance in the relationship. It's one of the main things that people come to clinic for is to resolve desire discrepancy. And, you know, the assumption is, well, men have the higher drive, and so they're going to be wanting sex more than women. I'll tell you, if you could be the fly on the wall in our clinic, that's generally true, but about a fourth of our cases, the female's higher drive, and she's going, can you get this guy to be a little bit more frisky? Because he's just not, he's not making it as fun as I'd like it to have.
Yeah, I was like, that's, you come to mind.
And currently I have 2 patients who are males who have never had an orgasm. One of them is in his middle 20s and another is in his early 30s. Have never had an orgasm, have never ejaculated. Okay.
Wow.
So they have a pretty severe condition, and they're both married and their wives won't have babies. And so they're in clinic to resolve that problem. So sexual trauma or repression can, you know, really push people back, you know, big time.
Right. One more question.
Yeah.
In the clinical studies, how do you get to 2.5 times a week? Because I'm just wondering how I could have half. Half, is that just the tip? Just kidding, I'm just trying to put it out there.
I was thinking the same thing as I thought.
So
just the balls.
So
Let me just play the balls.
I'm gonna have fun with this for just a second, okay?
Good, you should.
So the 2 times are couple sex, and the half time is you by yourself.
Oh! All right, I got it. I'll put it on my schedule. Let me make sure that it's on my schedule. I'm going to do my halfies. Okay,
Back
guys.
to Crystal's question on like
Yeah.
with the average time, you said it depends on the age. What about after menopause?
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
So the question was, what about after menopause? So again, with age, things are variable. So blood flow is really important. If you're clogging up your arteries and you know you have blood flow to your brain or your genitals or you know all the other good parts, your function is going to nosedive more. So, but generally, as people age, they tend to lose sexual function. So the healthier you are, better your sex life is. But when people hit andropause or menopause, we do have the magic of hormone replacement therapy. And today we have bioidentical hormones. And almost all of our patients that are coming in saying, hey, we don't want to lose the magic. We still want to have the connection, the physical connection. Then we will do blood tests on them and see where things are out of balance, and then we can add that. So, so that's how that's managed, and it's pretty magical that we have all of that stuff today. And for men, we have the PDE5 inhibitors now, which are you know the Viagra and Levitra and Cialis products that help get blood flow, but they don't do anything for disconnection. And honestly, we do more treatment on communication and connection with couples to pump up their love life than we do on bedroom skills or hormones. It's really, really, really about the connection primarily. Yeah, but if your hormones are out of balance or you lack bedroom skills, then you need that, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I have a question though for
Yeah.
you on that. So you said that there is a supplement for guys to continue to help them.
yeah,
Is there something for women when they go into menopause and they stop being able to, like a lot of women will end up like essentially drying up
yeah,
and they cannot lubricate.
yes.
Is there something, is that all hormonal or is there something
Pretty
you
much.
can do supplement wise?
To help get a slippery slope
Because-
again.
Yeah.
I feel like it's connection, you lose the connection when you can't get that
Oh,
physical
yeah.
connection.
I know.
And then you're kind of screwed that way.
Or not.
Or not screwed.
We're actually the opposite.
You ain't getting
So-
screwed.
That's a raw dog.
I'm just curious about
Yeah.
how that works for,
So primarily,
Just get-
vaginal lubrication comes from a healthy progesterone estrogen balance. So does sex drive. There's a ratio that's a healthy ratio, and if that ratio's off, it'll impact that in a negative way. Sometimes you get side effects from medications that you can't go off of. That's why they invented lube, you know,
Right.
it kind of gets you by. But you know, you're really saying, hey, how can we keep our bodies functional as long as we can?
Right.
And really the hormone replacement therapy is sort of the magic bullet for that, more than anything else.
Probably drinking enough water.
Oh yeah.
Not a lot of alcohol, right? Let's all get real.
Well, I said my mother, this is my mom and my dad's current situation.
Yeah.
And they literally hate each other right now.
Yeah.
And it all boils down to my mom not being able to.
It's
be able to
really,
do that, be
really
able to do that.
stressful. Aging people, when you've got people that are 55 plus, and especially as they get into their 60s and 70s, men have the highest suicide rate in males is older men. And when men lose their capacity to make love, they get really depressed.
Yeah,
And
that's a huge thing.
yeah, and for women as well, because it's part of the, you know, the connection. And there's an exchange of body fluids and biochemistry. There's a book out that's entirely on the benefits of making love and how it alters your body and keeps you healthy biochemically. So there's a lot of science to this stuff, and when you think about it, really, you know, if we're just eating what nature provides for us, drinking a lot of water, that we're not putting a lot of poison in our body, if we, you know, are compassionate, caring people, we're going to function well. But our society leads us down a lot of roads. When couples come in for help, a lot of times they're very involved in their career and their family. And I'll talk to them and I'll go, I want you to think of your relationship as a business. You know, how profitable is your business? How's it working for you? You know, do you need to be having some business meetings and talking about what's going on? You know, so people don't think of their relationship the way they think about their business. They put a whole bunch of time into work and earning money and doing all that. But what about your love account? How much money are you depositing into your love account? And so people, a lot of times we have to counsel people on how to change their schedule and schedule time for relationship. I just came off of a 1 week honeymoon with my wife a week ago. And a few times a year, we will go someplace. And this last time we went into the mountains of Colorado, rented a cabin. We were someplace where there was no cell service, no kids, no jobs, no email, no nothing. And you would be surprised, you know, if you have a reasonable relationship, how fun that is, how much you go back to that original courtship feeling. And I'll tell you, that honeymoon was fun. A lot of love making and a lot of being naked.
Yeah.
It was really good. So it was really good. So, well, it looks like I'm going to have to wrap up.
That's okay.
So before I do, I just want to give you one more handout. So this is an assignment from our Love School program. So if you became a student in our Love School program, which is fairly demanding of time and energy, can you just hand out some of those? This would be an actual assignment that you would have, and I'd love to give this to patients as well, because it's very growth promoting. And if you look at the top page in it, it has a list of attributes of love. Compassion, patience, kindness, forgiveness, stuff like that. And what you do with that top sheet is you evaluate, how good am I at this? Am I very compassionate? Am I 0 or am I 10? So take that handout home and take some time and go through those attributes, because if you want to have a great love life or a great relationship, or just be happy as a person, if you are underdeveloped in these ways, it's going to play out negatively in your life. So you want that. The second page is a list of negative emotions: jealousy, angry, frustrated, you know, that kind of stuff. So you go through and rate yourself on that. Am I a highly jealous person? You know, am I not very good at forgiving other people, that kind of stuff. And then, if you're scoring high on page 2, you go back to page 1 and you find the love antidote to your jealousy problem, which is forgiveness, compassion, etc. So this is a really fun little worksheet to work, something you can do real easily. It's a real assignment from our Love School program. So I wanted to give you that because a lot of people get a lot of mileage out of that. If you, right now our Love School program is one-on-one with moi. So what you get is you get a binder that looks something like this with a lot of material in it. And you'll be doing a lot of reading. Most of the students will go through a book in 2 weeks. And we go through the whole history of love in the human race, what love is, what it comes from in cultures, how it's defined, what science knows about it, what medicine knows about it, the biochemistry of it, the brain science of it, the psychology of it, the sociology of it, the art of it. You know, it's a comprehensive course on what love is. So people can go through this and just find out, hey, this is what love is, I can become an amazing person, really understand this. There's another arm to this where if you go through and you actually do the writing assignments, which would be just like if you're in college, and when you're done, we graduate you and certify you so that you can go be a facilitator and work with other couples or other individuals and teach them how to have a great relationship. So I'm probably going to retire.
That would be fun. That would be good for you.
I'm probably going to retire in maybe 10 years, you know. So when I'm done, you guys have to pick up the ball because, you know, I'm going to be sitting on the beach someplace. So, well, hey, I've loved being here with you guys. Thank you, Amanda, for inviting me. It's been a lot of fun.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here.
So feel free to call me. All my information's on there if you want.
Perfect.
So, love you guys.
Love you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Malan. Awesome. That was amazing, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys learn a bunch of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Malan, I would like to maybe invite you back, and whether it's this year or next year, I think another good thing that we could teach people about relationships is the language of communication in relationships, because that's been really huge for me, is how we talk to each other and how we like to be talked to each other. Is that, you know, or do we talk to each other or do we not, and why? Because you know, Josh and I's thing is it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it that drives me fucking crazy. Like, it'll just be that tone and I'm like, it's like nails on a chalkboard, and I'm just like, I instantly get turned off and defensive for whatever reason. And what it comes back to is at some point in time in my life, I felt shamed or unsafe, or something has happened to me that has created this scar within me that you carry forward for life. So until you learn how to peel back the layers of these onions and heal that and change your story and move forward, it's kind of hard to be in complete harmony in your relationship. So I would love for you to maybe come back and learn and teach people about spite talk and control talk and all of those types of things, because there's healthy ways of talking to people and there's very unhealthy ways, which will ultimately result in, you know, a happy marriage and a happy life. Happy life, Ben. So anyways, one more round of applause for Dr. Malan. Yeah. So what we're going to do now is, one, I need to give a shout out